Welcome to Montreal, the largest city in the province of Quebec and second largest in Canada. This city is a bustling centre of art, culture, film, television and music, and hosts the Montreal International Jazz Festival, the largest jazz festival in the world. However, for us race fans, the Ferrari Challenge will again support the Formula One Canadian Grand Prix on the 4.3-kilometre Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, where a packed grid of Ferrari 296 Copa and Trofeo Pirelli drivers will be vying for victory, and they won't be the only Ferrari drivers hoping for success this weekend. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Montreal, where, as you can see, the weather conditions are not absolutely idyllic. It's round 3 of our Ferrari Challenge 2024 calendar, and this is race 2 of our weekend here in support of the Canadian Formula One Grand Prix. We've already been to Circuit of the Americas and Laguna Seca. Here we are in Canada before heading off to Watkins Glen, then Sonoma Raceway, Indianapolis, and then the finale mondiale this year being held at Imola in Italy. So this is what it looks like when the sun shines, which is not the case today, I'm sorry to say, but nonetheless, of course, our drivers are made of stern stuff, and whatever the weather will throw at us will deliver fantastic racing for us. So 2.7 miles is the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, 14 turns, 6 of them are left-handers, 8 of them are right-handers. And it is quite a test for our drivers, and they all embrace racing here in support of Formula One. It is fantastic, as we can see our pole sitter there. The number 50 car driven by Matias Perez Combank, who's had a race win this year and will be vying for another one. The track temperature 19 degrees, air temperature 14, 93% humidity, and about 8 kilometers per hour of wind. Let's hope it doesn't bring those dark rain clouds in too quickly. What say you, Shay Adam? Hello.
Hello, Dave, and hello, Ferrari race fans around the world. I said it yesterday, and I will say it again today. The racing gods are Ferrari fans because it is not currently raining, and it's not expected to rain in Montreal again until about 30 minutes after our race, when the skies will open up once again. So we should get some good racing and some clean laps for our, count them, 32 296 race cars on the grid today.
You have got a hotline to those that matter when it comes to the weather, Shay. I don't know how you do it, but when you said it's what's going to happen, I believe everything you tell us because you're generally always right. So, as Shay mentioned then, a big grid of Ferrari 296 cars in the Ferrari Challenge. There are 4 categories of racing, all in one here. Don't we give you brilliant value in Ferrari Challenge? Trofeo Pirelli drivers, as Matias Combank, the car center screen that you can see right now. Note, that has a red strip across the top of the windscreen. That denotes the fact it's a Trofeo Pirelli driver. If it's a white strip, they're a Trofeo Pirelli AM driver. If it's a yellow strip across the top of the windscreen, they are Shell drivers, and the black strip across the top of the windscreen means they are Shell AM drivers. It's just our way of being able to make it as easy for you as possible to identify which driver is racing in which category of car. And as we go down this huge grid of Ferrari Challenge cars, then I remind you, it is the 296 Challenge, the 3-litre twin-turbo V6 700 HP car, which a driver like Eric Marston really seems to have mastered. Let's meet him.
Montreal as a city is awesome. It's an amazing city with everything there is to do downtown. You feel like you're kind of in Europe, which is super awesome. Such great nightlife, such great stuff to do. As far as driving the 296 on this track, I am super excited to do that. I love this car. You guys did amazing with this car. The track itself, it's a high-speed track, which I love. It's got to take risks here. The walls are right there, but you're rewarded. So if you get everything right, you're just doing really amazing around this track. I got my first win ever in Ferrari Challenge here. It was an incredibly special event to be able to stand on the F1 podium. You know, the fact that we get to do our podium on the F1 podium is always super freaking special. So yeah, coming back, and this year I saw they have the cool new podium with the screen. So, you know, fingers crossed I'll be on the podium this year and we'll get to see what you guys put on the screen. That'll be very cool.
Well done, Eric. Great to hear from him. Shay, I think you will agree, like all the drivers in our Ferrari Challenge paddock, they're all super characters. And Eric really seeming to get the most out of the new car for 2024, the Ferrari 296. And I think it's fair to say that his driver coaching is working really well, Shay.
Yes, it is. Alessandro Balzan is his coach this year, and the multi-time IMSA champion and long-time associated with Ferrari driver has really helped Eric with this year to turn that corner and get multiple wins, something he hasn't done in a season for a very long time. He's been third in the Copa Shell AM classification before, but now running in Copa Shell, and this is a man who truly is Ferrari through and through. Eric, who became a lover of Ferraris from watching Magnum PI. Let's face it, who didn't? He bought his first one in 2012, and since then, it's just been a roller coaster. And he said his family loved the shout out at Laguna Seca, so hello to his wife Amy and his kids Madeline, Gwendolyn, Tristan, and Declan.
I had the pleasure of spending some social time with them last year, and Amy and Eric are truly lovely people, and big shout out to the family, and go well, won't you, Eric Marston, then, who, of course, has raced not only here in North America, and the Ferrari Challenge, its tentacles stretch far and wide, you know, because hugely successful here in North America. We have series also in Europe, also in the UK, and in Japan as well. And as a one-make series, it is utterly brilliant and compelling. And just more than can be said for the weather that Shay promised me for this weekend. And once again, has not let me down because it's dry at the moment. But either side of our race, Shay, it might be a bit different to that. So we're just awaiting the all clear before the cars will go. Given to understand that probably because of the changing conditions, Shay, we might get a couple of formation laps behind the safety car here.
Yes, which is what happened in the race that occurred previously to this one. The clock starts the first time they cross the start-finish line, which is the end of the first formation lap, but then a second formation lap to allow for additional sighting. It gives the drivers time to figure out what it's going to look like when they can't see very much. And thankfully, because it hasn't been raining for a little while, it should dry out fairly quickly, Dave. But these wet weather Pirellis, they move a lot of water, so the spray will be effusive.
Absolutely, and that's something that's always got to be considered. It's the visibility. It's fine, of course, if you're going from P1, as Matthias Compank will be, but for everybody else that's running behind, visibility, certainly over the first few laps, is going to be really critical. So as I mentioned then, we're into the Ferrari 296 for this year here in North America. And a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking to both Antonello Coletta, the global head of endurance and Corsa Clienti for Ferrari, and also Andrea Mladisic, another head of Corsa Clienti, with regards to the design of this 296 car. Because, and I think you will agree with me, Shay, as you and I have the privilege to meet all these drivers and wander around the paddock here in Montreal, each and every single one of these drivers absolutely loving this very latest Ferrari Challenge car.
It is just such a driver-friendly car, Dave, and it really gives positive feedback. It's very rewarding that when you do things well, it pushes you further. And we've had drivers like our championship leader, Dylan Medler, really flourishing while driving this new car, but we do still have the opportunity to drive the old one. If you've got a 488 Challenge car and you want to have a weekend of it, well, guess what? Ferrari Challenge still allows that on the normal weekends, and we are going back to the normal weekends for our next round. You mentioned it at the top of the show, Watkins Glen. I can't wait.
No, and do you know what? For me, it's going to be a real interesting one, because unbelievably, with all the years I've been associated with you, Shay, in a professional sense, and the Ferrari Challenge, I've never been to Watkins Glen.
No. Oh, we have ice cream shops to hit up then, Dave. There are some of the best in Corning, New York.
You always have a treat for me in store, and bless your heart. Looking forward to that. So we're not far away from the drivers being released then for their formation lap. From Watkins Glen, we head to Sonoma in California, and then, of course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And before, all roads lead to Imola in Italy for the Finale Mondiale event. And I was mentioning earlier, all the regions of the Ferrari Challenge at that Finale Mondiale event, all the regions come together, and it is a glittering festival of everything that's brilliant about the prancing horse. So, we are about ready to go racing here in Montreal. Of course, we will bring you the grid in full. Lots of standing water around in some places here across the 2.7 miles of this Montreal circuit. Let's take a look at it then. Matthias Compan going from pole position. Alongside him, going to be a danger man, Dylan Medler. He goes from P2. From P3, it's Roberto Perina and Martin Burrows, who was on the podium yesterday. He's going from P4. David Musial Jr. and John Bennett then occupy the third row of our grid. It's P5 and P6 for those drivers. And then as we head to row 4, we find Michael Petramalo and then the quickest of our Trofeo Pirelli Am drivers. Well done, Tony Davis. Brian Cook and Benoit Bergeron, they will be going from P9 and P10. Brian Cook leading in the Trofeo Pirelli Am Championship at the moment. And it's Omar Balkasoon and Brandon Cruz who are on row 6. It's P11 and P12. Frank Chang and John Horse then, they occupy the 7th row of our starting grid, P13 and P14. And David Musial will be going from P15 on the grid, and then the best of our Cope Shell driver, Cyril Choksi, who will hope to right the wrongs of yesterday. They are ahead of Robert McWilliams and Eric Marston then. He's got work to do from there to try and get another victory. And then it's Mitchell Green and Chuck Whittle. They are P19 and P20. As we move through our starting grid then, John Visca goes from P21 and Jan Bernier are P22. To the 12th row of our grid, it's Lisa Clark and Bruce Cleveland. They are P23 and P24. And we move to the 13th row of our packed Ferrari Challenge grid here in Montreal with Asfaldo Gallo and Darren Bernstein. Darren Bernstein being the quickest of our Copa Shell Am drivers. He goes from P26. Ahead of Jerry Walters and Roger Monteforte. Another danger man potentially from P28 on the grid. And then we see Steve Check and Dana Goodwin. They occupy the 15th row of our race 2 starting grid ahead of the final row, which is row 16 with Gabe Harib and Brian Waltersdorf. So the scene is set then for what is going to be probably an extraordinary race. And Shay, to make mention of the visibility that I was talking about, look how difficult it is, and we are only on a formation lap.
The visibility or lack thereof, I think, is more appropriate. Drivers are going to need to use the force to try and find their way around the track for today's race. And yes, the problem is they are still going very slowly, which means that the tires are not picking up nearly as much water as they will be when we're at full speed.
Absolutely right, and you make mention of the fact that the Pirelli tyres are so efficient in terms of getting rid of the water, but a consequence of that, of course, is its spread, and that makes visibility for every driver very, very difficult indeed. There you can see the Dave Musial car, and there is Cyril Choksi. Now, I mentioned in our grid formation that Cyril Choksi is a driver that wants to right the wrongs of yesterday. He certainly hasn't had the rub of the green so far this season, Shay.
No, he hasn't. Cyril is a consummate professional, and he's somebody who's been there or thereabouts in the championship for the last couple of years. But it looked like this year was going to be all about Cyril. When we were at Circuit of the Americas, he got both pole positions for the first 2 races, second in the first race, and the win at the second. Then at Laguna, things went south. A DNS, so did not start race number 1, and then 4th place, 1 position off the podium for race number 2. Then we get here, and it looks better. We've got a pole position. It looks like maybe we're going to go back to the ways of Circuit of the America. Nope, he was involved in a lap 1, turn 1 incident.
And the thing is for Cyril, that lap 1, turn 1 incident, he was an innocent bystander, and that's why
Completely.
I'm just not going to get him to do my lottery ticket. No chance. So hopefully it all goes a lot better for Surreal Choxy, and we wish well to all of the drivers as we see them coming through here. Now, as we focus on the 169 car, you can see centre screen here, Darren Bernstein. We saw Darren at his absolute best in qualifying yesterday and also in the race yesterday. Now, Darren is a Cobra Shell AM driver. And, well, he was victorious. He was on the top step of a podium. And to be on the top step of a podium is something fabulous in any event. But to be on the top step of a Formula One podium, Darren was smiling from ear to ear.
And it's something especially extra special, and I hate to use those words together, you know how much that pains me, Dave, but for Darren Bernstein, 2024 has been show up and get on the podium. He's only run 3 races, well, he won one of them. Today will be race number 3, and the second race, he was second. So Darren Bernstein, really fine form in this new car. He's a perfect example of the 296 favoring him, because he's run the 488 the last couple of years, hasn't gotten to the top step of the podium, even the second step. This year, he's made himself very much at home in those 2 positions.
And the Bernstein family, like many of the families in the Ferrari Challenge, littered with talents, and I can't wait to see Max Bernstein in a car as well, who's certainly taken part in the Club Challenge as well, which is like a feeder into the Ferrari Challenge, if you will. So, Darren and Max on the same grid of cars. It's a potential and a possibility. We see that, of course, with the Musials, and it sounds like I'm bringing up all the hard luck stories, but for Dave Musial Senior, he didn't have a great time of it yesterday. He'll be hoping to do better today. Dave Musial Jr., or 2.0, as he's affectionately known, well, he should go well as well. Reaching the conclusion then, and the cars are gridding up side-by-side formation. Always a rolling start in the Ferrari Challenge. I think right at the start of this race, you can see that the clock is already ticking down. Effectively, the race is underway. And they're champing at the bit on the front row, Shay.
Here we go. Matthias Perez-Campang getting the promotion to the top class of cars. Trofeo Pirelli now. And he starts things off properly with the pole position. But Dylan Medler started from second yesterday, and it didn't take him very long at all, did it, Dave, to get the lead and run away. He's trying to figure out how to do it again today.
Absolutely, that will be key to his strategy. How can I get past Matthias Perez-Campang and, of course, Martin Burrows, the local star here. Driver of car number 46, he'll be wanting to do the same, and Roberto Perina is certainly going to have the same objectives as we get towards the start of this race. Race 2 of our weekend here in Montreal. This is the Ferrari Challenge North America. The Pirelli drivers, the Pirelli AM drivers, the Shell drivers, the Shell AM drivers are ready to go racing. And boy, are we looking forward to this. It's going to be very difficult for them, very challenging conditions, but they're made of stern stuff, you know, and this is going to be awesome. And Dylan Medler, wow, what a start. Gets by Matthias Perez-Campang immediately. Martin Burrows almost up to P3, but Roberto Perina tries to get in. He's done it. Roberto Perina moves through into that P3 position, so let's hold our fingers and hold our breaths. All the cars making through the first sequence of turns. Compelling and brilliant behaviour by all the drivers. They all got through unhindered, Shay.
Excellent driving. I'm very impressed by the standards we saw, particularly through turn 1, as somebody did lose a mirror going through that section. That's all right. We'll keep our eyes out. Yesterday, Martin Burrows lost both of his mirrors. Made no difference near enough. He still finished P2. But that was a very clean start. The thing that I'm wondering is race control will, of course, check the start. They always do. Did Dylan Medler, A, jump the green, or B, did he change lanes?
Around has gone Benoit Bergeron. He's trying to reverse now, and every other driver taking evasive action to avoid the Benoit Bergeron car that is trying to get back and pointing in the right direction. All the drivers thus far have avoided the back end of the Benoit Bergeron car. Thankfully, I think everyone has gone through, and he will be able to rejoin the race. As we look at this, you're quite right. Race control will take a look, as taking a look at the inside of Matthias Perez-Campang.
Cookie goes for
Brian.
a spin.
Oh, Brian. Goes from bad to worse for Brian Cook. Unfortunately, he'll rejoin. However, just as we were looking at that, well, there was plenty going on as Roberto Perina was trying to find a way past Matthias Perez-Campang. He wasn't successful on that occasion. He takes a look at the inside line now, and discretion the better part of valor. He realises that he's going to have to tuck back into that P3 place for the moment. Of course, for Dylan Medler, it's played perfectly into his hands, assuming race control find nothing wrong with his anticipation of the greens. he is just building that margin, already up to 2.443 seconds as Roberto Perina, well, like an ill-fitting shirt, is all over the back of Matias Perez Companc, and Tony Davis leading for our Pirelli AM drivers. And leading for the Shell drivers, it is Cyril Choksi. And leading in our Shell AM drivers, it's the 1-2-4 car of Steve Check.
What did we say in yesterday's race, Dave? That there were two drivers in the field who hail from Miami and Seattle who very much love racing in the rain. One of them being Dylan Medler, the other Roberto Perina, and they do look far more comfortable than everyone else.
You're right, so we get a replay of the start here, and by this point, you can see that Dylan Medler had already checked out, hadn't he? Through turn one of... Now, as you say, Race Control will take a look at this replay and many others as well, the data and also the camera angles that they have available to them. Make sure that they have always very, very informed decisions and the right decisions, but my fingers are crossed for Dylan Medler that he didn't anticipate the greens too early and go too early. And this, as you said, Shay, and you were right to do this, credit to all the drivers then, the standards through. And, oh, that's Brian Cook going for a sideways moment. I tell you what, Shay, that was one of the best saves I've seen for a long time. How did he control that?
Very impressive, as Brian Cook has made it back into the pit lane. Now they are pulling the bumper off, trying to make sure that everything is okay. Oh, but Brian Cook is out. That is a double DNF for the man who came into this weekend leading the Trofeo Pirelli AM Championship. Oh.
Bitter disappointment for Brian Cook. Always smiling, always loving his racing. And here then is Martin Burrows going through on our picture, and there the leader in Trofeo Pirelli AM is Tony Davis, but all of a sudden he's got Omar Balkasoon for company, merely 4 tenths behind him, and we know how determined Omar Balkasoon can be, and he will be trying to get by Tony Davis. Omar Balkasoon P2 in the race yesterday.
I am so impressed with Omar because this is his first weekend racing in the 296 Challenge car, and for him to be putting as much pressure as he is, that is a serious accomplishment.
And I think it's testament to how great and how rewarding these cars are for our drivers in terms of what they are able to do with them. Cyril Choksi equally has got Robert McWilliams chasing him down, and Robert McWilliams with one of the most multicoloured Ferrari 296 Challenge cars you are likely to see is reeling Cyril Choksi in as if Cyril was on the end of his fishing line. How appropriate with these weather conditions.
I see what you did there. And for Rob McWilliams, his driver coach is actually from Quebec. I'm wondering if that's given him some extra help this weekend too, because he has been driving excellent, just slicing his way up through the field.
So Cyril then having to defend that P1 position in Copa-Shell at the moment. I remind you, we have all 4 classes of Ferrari Challenge in the one race here, giving you maximum value then with our Trofeo Pirelli drivers, Pirelli AM, the Shell drivers that we're watching right now, and the Shell AM drivers as well. So this is the fight that's going on for the lead in Copa-Shell. It is between Cyril Choksi and Rob McWilliams then, as McWilliams now, he dives out of the wheel tracks of Cyril Choksi. It's not necessarily to put an overtake there. It's so that he can see where he's going because of all the spray coming off the back end of the Cyril Choksi car. It's like some really, really difficult. I speak to drivers about this and they say it's like driving in the worst fog possible when you've got spray coming off a car in front of you. So that's why he's diving out of the wheel tracks of Cyril Choksi, just so that his visibility, you can see the car just sliding a little bit, the front end of the car, but for the moment, Rob McWilliams is just staying within touch of Cyril Choksi, and Cyril will know through his rear-view screen that Rob is right there or thereabouts, and is continuing to drive a defensive line. Now, John Viscup, let's make mention of John Viscup in the Shell category, who is running in P3 and doing a very good job is John Viscup, having just set the class fastest lap.
John Viscup coming into today's race actually tied in points with Cyril Choksi. They have a very good battle on their hands for 5th. Rob McWilliams is up in the 3rd position after yesterday's race, so he can afford that 2nd place finish.
So the order is Dylan Medler leading in the race overall and leading in Trofeo Pirelli. For the Pirelli AM drivers, it's Tony Davis being hounded by Omar Balkasoon. For the Shell driver, Cyril Choksi and Rob McWilliams. And then for our Shell-Am drivers, it is Steve Check and Roger Monteforte. They are the top two in each of the categories. We see Jan Bernier there. Jan Bernier in the familiar colours, and now he's being chased by Eric Marston, who Eric Marston, he said at the beginning of the program, is going to have to right the wrongs of his starting position. And bearing in mind, Eric is on a rich vein of form, and he's tasted the sweet success. He wants to continue in that vein.
Very much so.
That looks like. Forgive me.
No, go ahead, Dave.
No, it's Rob McWilliams, who has got by not only Surreal Choxy, but also has got by John Horsch as well. So hopefully we'll get a replay of that, because Rob McWilliams from somewhere has got some incredible ability. Now, whether Surreal just made a mistake, I don't know. We are pontificating. We don't know the answer to that. What we do know is there's a change in the order. Let's take a look, Shay.
We were both so excited by it as, it was a dive down the inside, and the mirror from Bruce Cleveland getting chucked aside, because he doesn't need that anymore. He doesn't need to see anywhere around him. Let's see who that was making the diving move, though, as the blue mirror is just strewn at the outside the apex. That was car 179 making that dive bomb, so that was Mitchell Green.
Yeah. Yes. Well, the mirror looked relatively undamaged. That could be picked up by one of the marshals, and it will be refixed again. Right, here is Dylan Medler. We've not seen a lot of him. Forgive us, Dylan, but you're 2.6 seconds up the road from Matthias Perez Compact, and there is Roberto Perino running in P3 at the moment, ahead of Martin Burrows, and then it is Michael Petramalo and Dave Musial 2.0. For the Pirelli Am drivers, Tony Davis continuing to lead from Omar Balkas soon. But as I mentioned, been a change in Shell lineup, and that is now Rob McWilliams, who is leading from Surreal Choxy, who's relegated to P2. For the Shell-Am drivers, Steve Check, Roger Monteforte, that remains as we were. And now we can see Robert McWilliams, now he's been released almost from the cork in the bottle. He is escaping up the road like a thing possessed. And of course, Surreal Choxy is tied up behind John Horsch, as another couple behind there, just to trade a little bit of paint, rubbing his racing, they say. And there is John Horsch and Surreal Choxy. Bear in mind, they're not in the same class, but Surreal Choxy needs to find a way past John Horsch to try and take it back and take the battle back to Rob McWilliams' shape.
Yeah, this is multi-class racing at its finest, and just because the cars are out on track together doing their own races, it's a good way for them to learn what it's like to coexist. Now, a great move a couple moments ago from Chuck Whittle down the inside at 13-14 on John Viscup. We saw Whittle making some of these passes yesterday too. Clearly, he's very comfortable in the braking zone for 13.
He absolutely is, and whilst it was a feisty move and bold, it was a move that worked, and well, there we have it. Now, I'm being advised in my headphones here in the comms booth that Dylan Medler, now you might see 3 red bars on the graphics at the top of your screen alongside Dylan Medler. That basically means that Dylan Medler is going to get a time penalty of 15 seconds. So, Shay, you were right to come up with the anticipation of the start. So that changes the face of this. Although Dylan Medler is leading the race on the track, actually, it's Matthias Perez Compact from Roberto Perino and Martin Burrows that will be the top 3.
That drops Dylan Medler currently as they run to P5. So he now needs to put his head down and try to check out from the guys behind. Now, on the other hand, Matthias Perez Compact needs to stay calm, because as long as he keeps Roberto Perino behind him, he's got a race win. As Chuck Whittle making that move at turn 13 again. Can he hold on for the over-under on Surreal Choxy? Yes! Go, Chuck, go!
Chuck Whittle is, wow, he is doing so well, and, well, once again, he was absolutely determined to make that move, and he made the move stick. So brilliant driving from Chuck Whittle, who, of course, was on the podium yesterday, and he's absolutely determined to cement his position on the podium as well, as Surreal Choxy now should be able to find a way past John Horsch. But did he have enough momentum? Not sure, but he's got the inside line. And so Surreal Choxy, for the moment, holds on to this P3 position. But do bear in mind that also trying to join this almost four-way party is that driver. 1, 2, 6, Eric Marston. Eric Marston, who, of course, comes into this race having taken 3 race wins on the bounce. He, at least, would want to be on the podium.
And where did this all begin? Well, it was a big dive from Mitchell Green that went through the hairpin. He didn't actually manage to hold on to a position, but the hairpin a few minutes ago caught Cyril Choksy out. That's what opened up the door for Chuck Whittle to get the run on him. And now John Viskup having to fight off our poor friend Eric Marsden, who started way back down the field looking to try and get win number 4 in a row. He's got his work cut out for him.
Here he comes then, going to try the long move around the outside or throw John Viskup as something of a dummy as he will try to get to the inside. But no, sticks with the outside line. John Viskup will be more than well aware of the fact that Eric Marston is coming calling on his gearbox here. And this is the fight that is going on in Shell at the moment between Eric Marston and John Viskup. So Eric Marston dives out. John Viskup takes a look at the inside of the horse car, and through the chicane they go. In dry conditions, they run oh so close to those barriers. It's an absolute joy to behold, but clearly in these very challenging conditions, that is not quite the case. As we see him replay once again, well, tried all sorts of different lines at the hairpin, and not one of them has been an orthodox one, Shay.
No, but Mitchell Green hasn't hit anything, so he can't keep trying them just as long as he keeps it out of the wall. We've had a change further down, by the way, in Copa-Chelam. Roger Monteforte has gone back to the point in that category and now has a half-second advantage over Steve Check.
So the collection driver, Dylan Medler, is P1, but he's P1 on track. Bear in mind, he's got that 15-second time penalty. So basically what that means is he's got to try and build a gap of some 15 seconds.
Ugh.
And that's going to be a tall order with 11 and a half minutes of the race remaining. And so Dylan Medler then going to be relegated down the order. It's going to be very difficult for him to take on board that. But there we are. Race control have deemed that he did anticipate the greens and went too early. So that changes things quite significantly, as you were waxing lyrical about Roger Monteforte and Steve Check, and in replay, Steve Check and Roger Monteforte really getting close together there, Shay.
They were rubbing. That was racing. That was a very interesting maneuver between the two drivers, but both able to continue round. Roger able to get a better run off of the corner. Maybe he just found a little more grip for those Pirelli wet weather tires as Steve Check's mirror decides to wave to Roger Monteforte as it goes off.
Yes, that was nice. Right, there is Matthias Kompang, who for my money is actually now, as this track is beginning to dry out, and therefore it's going to become more difficult to get the wet weather tyres to work properly. He is beginning to really close in on Dylan Medler right now. Dylan Medler, we're already aware of the fact that he's got that time penalty come as Martin Burrows, Shay, sets a very quick lap as well. And certainly he's not out of this yet. We've got 10 and a half minutes remaining. Ferrari Challenge Race 2 here in Montreal. And you can just see the lights on of the Roberto Perena car, who, of course, come, if everything were to stay the same as it is right now, would actually be second in this race.
Correct, and would move himself much better up in the championship as well. Now, this is the issue because Matthias Perez Companc is a very young driver. Yes, he's coached by experience and wisdom of Oz Negri, but are they on the radio to him saying, son, you don't need to pass the car ahead. You can catch up to him if you want, but please don't risk anything. And speaking of risking things, Benoit Bergeron on a charge back, just a little love tap to Steve Check. No harm, no foul. Both cars continuing around. Race control might examine that post-race, but for the time being, everything's okay.
Steve Check has had one or two lumps, hasn't he, during the course of this race? If not from Benoit Bergeron, certainly from others. So there is Dylan Medler just catching the curve there, and that upsetting the car a little bit, and that's allowing Matthias Kompang to get ever closer. So Matthias Kompang, although he's running P2 on track, he's actually nominally the race leader ahead of Roberto Perena and Martin Burrows. Then it's Michael Petromalo, Dave Musial 2.0. So Dylan Medler, and I suspect that as this track is drying, then it's much, much harder to keep these tyres into a condition where they are going to afford you the grip that you really want. And I think Dylan is probably struggling a little bit more than Matthias Kompang. Equally, I could be talking a load of old nonsense.
Well, I'll tell you who's not struggling right now is Tony Davis leading the way in the Pro-Am category as Trofeo Pirelli. The Am class, he has a 5-second advantage over Omar Balkasoon. So the man who's used to setting off fireworks, giving us a lot to watch and cheer for this weekend.
Yeah, Tony Davis doing a very good job ahead of Omar Balkasoon. Then it's Brandon Cruz. For our Shell drivers, Rob McWilliams, Chuck Whittle and Cyril Choksey holding on to that P3 place. And for our AM drivers, it is Roger Monteforte from Steve Czech and Darren Bernstein. That's the way it looks at the moment with just on 8 minutes of this race remaining. Matthias Kompank, I feel sure you're right, Shay. The team should have said, look, you know, you've not got to go all out to try and get by Dylan. It's going to be completely academic, but of course, what he wants to do is make sure that he maintains that margin he has from Roberto Perina as well, who's not so far behind, Shay.
Roberto Perina has turned on the afterburners, and now he is only 1.9 seconds off the leader, and he's less than a second off of Kompank. So this is going to get very interesting toward the end of this race, particularly if Medler is maybe struggling slightly with the lack of grip. That's going to open him up to 2 positions. Let's see if we can diagnose this jump start or changing of columns before the start-finish line. I think he might have done both.
Yeah, that's the thing. The cars have got to stay side by side, and wow. For me, that was pretty clear, Shay. It's what we would call a slam dunk, I think. There's no question about that, and probably Dylan was aware of that fact.
He went early, and keep an eye on his positioning because you're supposed to hold your column until after the start-finish line. Dylan had already moved over in front of Perez Kompank before the start-finish line, and oh no, trouble for Bubbles.
Dreary Walters has gone around, but we'll get it pointing in the right direction again. Now, is there damage to the back end of that car, and where that car is situated? Well, Jerry, who I have to say has been a fantastic driver. Let's take a look. What happened here? Just completely on her own. And that proves, Shay, if I'm honest with you, just how difficult it is, the grip conditions.
Oh, for sure. It's very slippery out there, and just because you're on the right tires, I mean, look at the car in shot ahead of her before we got to that situation with a huge wiggle as well.
So, that's a great shave for Jerry Walters. Meantime, just as you predicted, Shay Adam, these three, it becomes a 3-way fight on track. It's actually only a 2-way fight because Dylan is the completely academic at this point. As Matthias Kompank is going to go for it when really he needs not to, but he's got to stay ahead of Roberto Perena. So he goes through. Now Perena is going to try and stitch his way through the Dylan Medler car as well if he has any aspirations in the final 5 3/4 minutes of this race to convert what is P2 into P1. He's P3 at the moment, but that's on track. He's P2 in terms of the order because of that time penalty that Dylan has got hanging over him. So Matthias Kompank now will try and escape up the road, being very aware of the fact. But of course he is going to have traffic to come up against as well, Shay. So the dice being rolled big time here, and it could be very, very difficult for these drivers.
It looks positively treacherous out there in these mixed conditions. Not dry enough for dry tires, not wet enough for the wet tires, and this is the situation that you find yourself in with 5 minutes to go when fighting for the chance to stand on an F1 podium in Montreal. Yes, please, give me a bucket of popcorn.
Yes, okay, fair enough. Here comes Roberto Perena then. He gets by that back marking car. What he's got to do is try and find his way past Dylan Medler. That's for sure, if he wants to try and take this to Matthias Kompank. We will see how it rolls out for the final 5 minutes of this Ferrari Challenge race. I remind you that you are looking at the leader in the Ferrari Challenge, Trofeo Pirelli. For Trofeo Pirelli Am, Tony Davis doing a brilliant job. For the Shell drivers, it's Rob McWilliams, and for the Shell Am drivers, it's Roger Monteforte. Here's more action.
That was a scary moment as somebody came to stop by the mirror.
Just catching the back end of the Lisa Clark car as well, Shay. So, there you can see the damage on the Lisa Clark car. So here's Eric Marston, who does find his way initially past the 189 car of John Viscar, but then he's taken to grass cutting, and that means that, of course, he's much, much slower. And John Viscar says, thanks very much, I'm having that place back again. Meantime, Roberto Perena then in the number 55 car for Ferrari of Seattle is pushing Dylan Medler, metaphorically, to try and find a way by here. So you can see, by dint of the fact that no drivers have visibility issues now, that the water has been dissipated nicely, and therefore they're really struggling with the wet weather tyres to find the grip that they really, really want. And here comes Roberto Perena. Where is he going to be able to do this?
He's not, because the full course caution is out, and this is horrible news for Dylan Medler. With the gap as it was, he would only drop down to potentially P6. With the field packed up again because of a big incident from Michael Petromalo, this is going to be detrimental to Dylan Medler's championship hopes.
You're absolutely right, and that is a big in for Michael Petromalo, Shay. Debris all over the track. And you know, bear in mind, he was running in a very, very good position in Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli. He was running P5, which nominally would have been P4, potentially, depending on the time he was back. But it's certainly not going to be the case now, because the car is up against the barriers, as you can see. So that looks like the Benoit Bergeron car, I think.
I think you're right.
Coming in just below us here in Montreal, the number 32 car from Benoit Bergeron, the Ferrari of Quebec driver, the number 12 car. So Benoit finishing P3 in the race yesterday. Regrettably, he's not going to repeat that success today, as this full course yellow then, and it turns into the final lap of this Ferrari Challenge race. And well, that's the best thing to see. Michael Petromalo, of course, the integral safety of these challenge cars is absolutely superb, and Michael's out of the car. He's perfectly okay, as you can see, walking away from the damage. I wonder how it happened. Well, if you're wondering as much as we are, we're going to get a replay as quickly as we can to see why Michael Petromalo ended up in the barriers like that from his P5 position in Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli.
And Michael's not the kind of guy to make those mistakes on his own, so was there someone else involved? No, it was just driving too far over to driver's left, dropped two wheels on the grass, and oh my goodness, what a big impact for Michael.
At that point, once those wheels were on the grass, Shay, as you and I both know well from our pedal cycling activities, that once you're on the grass, you are but a passenger, and unfortunately that was the case for Michael Petromalo. It was just why you have to be millimetrically perfect, and very good avoidance behind as well.
Wonderful.
And yeah, that was just really, really unfortunate. No other driver involved, and well, Michael Petromalo is perfectly okay. That's the most important thing for us to be able to tell you. He's out of the car and he's perfectly okay. It was a big hit. It was nobody's fault. It's just one of those things. So there is Michael. Medics were there straight away, and you know, he is perfectly okay. So unfortunately for Michael, that P5, which actually potentially could have been P4, has gone away.
Yeah.
As we said yesterday, Shay, motor racing is beautiful, but it can be brutal as well. And I'm guessing that's why we love it as much as you and I do. And so do hundreds of thousands of others, and we love it.
Yes, and this does mean that the field has been frozen, and this being the final lap means that our winners and our podium earners are set. Matthias Perez-Companc will win his first race overall in his first weekend in the top category. Just another shout out for Dave Musial 2.0 for the avoidance of the hood flying on the track in front of him. Fantastic heads up driving. That young man is already someone who's impressed us a lot, Dave, but just even more in this instance.
Yeah, the Ferrari Challenge, really, really driving young talent, and Dave Musial 2.0, one of those. And not necessarily on this occasion for the prowess that we know he has, but also for his spatial awareness as well. And you're quite right to call that out, Shay, because he did a great job in avoiding various bits of 296 that were flying across the track from the Michael Petromalo car. Well done to Tony Davis, the Continental Autosports driver, and he is winner in Trofeo Pirelli Am. Well done, Tony. And for the Shell drivers, it's going to be Robert McWilliams, and for the Shell Am drivers, it's going to be Roger Monteforte, because under the full course yellow here in Montreal, this final lap, no one could do any overtaking. Therefore, the order that we have is the order that will ensure that Robert McWilliams goes to the top step of the Cobra Shell podium. You can see just how happy he's going to be about that, Shay.
His first race win, Dave. Last year he ran in this category. His best finish was 10th. He got that twice. This year his best finish has been 2nd. He's had that twice, and now a race winner. Congrats, Rob.
Yeah, great job done. Great job done by Matthias Kompank as well then, as Shay mentioned, first overall race win. And first winner in the top class of the Ferrari Challenge as well, the Trofeo Pirelli. So well done indeed. Great job done. Another young superstar making his way in this wonderful motorsport and the utterly brilliant Ferrari Challenge. I have to say, generally speaking, Shay, in what were atrocious conditions, I want to say a big shout out to all the drivers, because I think it could have been so different to the race that we saw.
Here, everybody kept calm and cool. The turn one, everyone being respectful, very, very impressive. And how about Martin Burrows' podium sweep of the weekend for the local hero? That's just fantastic. Tony Davis with his 2nd consecutive win of the season. Really chuffed with what we saw on track and all of the respect that was shown amongst all of our competitors.
Yeah, they did a very, very good job indeed. So well done to them all. And from here, of course, we head off to our next event, which will be mid-July, when we're going to Watkins Glen. And there is Roger Monteforte then in the 101 car. Beg your pardon, the graphics to the right-hand side are illustrating that it's Steve Czech. But the car that we were looking at was the 101 car of Roger Monteforte. And across the line then, Roger goes, and the rest of the cars as well. So to remind you then, the winners we have Matthias Kompank for Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli. For the Pirelli Am drivers, it's going to be Tony Davis taken to the top step of the podium, Rob McWilliams in the Shell drivers, and it's Steve Czech ahead of Darren Bernstein and Roger Monteforte, the car that we were seeing a few moments ago, which will end up, he'll be back on the podium with a P3.
Steve Czech was in the wars today, and that car ultimately resulting in a win. What a fantastic day. And if we had talked to Steve halfway through the race, he probably would have given us a very different story. But now that everything is said and done, I'm sure he has a giant smile on his face.
Yeah, he's Steve is one of these drivers that is perpetually smiling, isn't he? But you're absolutely right. I mean, the Ferrari of Rancho Mirage team are going to be there with several polishing cloths, I would suggest, across the car of Steve Czech, because he was on the receiving end of one or two little nerfs, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. A couple of door dings, a couple of side-to-side contacts, maybe a punt here or there, but that was a wonderful job from Steve Czech.
Yeah, good on him. And, well, we've had two very different races, but two entertaining races equally from Ferrari Challenge here in Montreal, that's for sure. And, well, the drama, as is always the case when we support Formula One here at the Canadian Grand Prix, has come thick and fast. And well done to all the drivers. Great stuff. Of course, they'll be ushered into the pit lane, and we'll try and get them up to the podium as quickly as we can so we can enjoy the celebrations as well. So for Shay and I, it's always a great privilege to bring you the race action wherever you're enjoying it. And yeah, here in Montreal, once again, the Ferrari Challenge has certainly not disappointed. Let's take a look at the results in full for you. The confirmed classification: Matthias Perez Kompank P1 ahead of Roberto Perena, then Martin Burrows ahead of Dave Musial 2.0. Then the best of the AM drivers, Tony Davis, is ahead of John Bennett, Omar Balkasoon, Brandon Cruz, Frank Chang, and David Musial. Taking P10, but of course taking P5 within the Trofeo Pirelli AMs. Rob McWilliams, then Dylan Medler and Chuck Whittle and Cyril Choksy. They are the top three in Shell, ahead of John Horsch, John Visca, Eric Marston, Osvaldo Gallo and Jan Bernier. They occupy the positions up to P19 overall. And then we saw Lisa Clark and Bruce Cleveland. Steve Czech, then winner for Shell Am ahead of Darren Bernstein. What a weekend he's had. And Roger Monteforte then takes P3. And then a good P4 from Dana Goodwin as well, ahead of Brian Waltersdorf and Gabe Harib. Then it was Michael Petramalo, unfortunately, Benoit Bergeron, Jerry Walters, Brian Cook, and non-starters of Ray Acosta, Jason McCarthy, Bernard Gomez, Al Hegyi, and Paul Lynn. So the Race 2 classification here in Montreal. And yes, I did fear going into this race, Shay, with the conditions that we had, that it was going to be a really, really tricky race for our drivers, but they proved just how good they are by adapting to those conditions and being ever aware of it. And I credit to them all. Credit to them all.
I told you not to fear, Dave. We have very good drivers, and the weather gods are on our side because clearly Ferrari racing is what they favor. So really pleased with everybody that we saw today and the standards that we saw. Wish that maybe Medler hadn't jumped the start. What coulda, shoulda, woulda. It would have been more of a fight for that lead at the end of the race. But you know what? It's a long season still to go, and this championship is very much alive.
Oh, that's right. I mean, you know, the storybook that as is written, as you can see there, Louis Colmash going to afford congratulations to Matthias Kompank as the cars are all brought into the pit lane here. Jumping out of the car there, kept his cool, did what he needed to do, and congratulations being afforded there. Credit to all the drivers and all the organisation team that work with us here in Montreal, particularly those guys from Ferrari who look after us so very well. And Matthias Kompank is going to be one of the happiest drivers, I would suggest, down there. As you say, elevated from Pirelli Am to, if I'm honest with you, Shay, where he probably deserves to be.
For sure. He proved that today, Dave. He finished first overall, and he won the race on the track as well as on the results. So this will be a big bolster to his championship aspirations as well. He was third after yesterday's race, and he came in looking very strong. This could be our champion this year. We've got a very tight battle between Dylan Medler, Roberto Perena, and now Matthias Perez-Kompank.
Well, as you say, there are so many permutations and the way things work out. You know, it's just littered with talent all the way through the grid, as he's congratulated there by Martin Burrows. A slight difference in age there. But that's what I love about the Ferrari Challenge. You've got young whippersnappers like Matthias, and then you've got, dare I say it, at the risk of getting a slap from Martin, old campaigners like Martin, who's been around a while, but you know, can still mix it. And you know what, Shay, you and I come into a race weekend, and of course we always have our predictions. We look at Roberto Perena, then removing his balaclava. He looks properly worn out, doesn't he?
He does.
You know, we come into a race weekend as he's there with Matt Dusenberry. We come into a race weekend and we kind of don't know which way it's going to go. You know, we offer our predictions, but oftentimes we're completely wrong, Shay, and that's testament to how good the Ferrari Challenge is.
I wish the predictions were set.
Here are the Drivers' Championship points then. Dylan Medler, P1, but 6 points behind Roberto Perena. Then it is Matthias Kompank, who's moved up to P3 in the points. Then it's Dave Musial Jr. Then it is Martin Burrows. Then it's John Bennett. Then Jason McCarthy and Joe Rubo, the top 8 drivers in the Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli Drivers' Championship, ahead of Michael Petramalo, Jeremy Clark, Christian Podolicchio, and Brett Curtis. So that's the way the Drivers' Championship looks for Trofeo Pirelli. Of course, we'll bring you the Pirelli Am Drivers' Championship as well, where Brian Cook still leads, but his gap is narrowed to 8 over Tony Davis. Then it's Frank Chang, David Musial, Benoit Bergeron, John Horsch, Sebastian Mascaro, and Brandon Cruz. They are the top 8 in the Pirelli Am Drivers' Championship, ahead of Michael Mathis, Jay Logan, Omar Balkestun, Chris Cagnazzi, Brian Kaminsky, Brad Falva, and Ben Gudenzi. And that's the way the Pirelli Am Drivers' Championship looks through to position 15. In due course, we'll bring you the Shell Drivers' Championship as well, but we'll continue to look at the pictures down here in the pit lane as the drivers are ushered off up to the podium as quickly as they can. So what I was saying there, Shay, just before the Drivers' Championship points, you know, such a rich mix of drivers in Ferrari Challenge.
Really is, and my explanation of wow was because when we started today, it was a 39-point advantage for Cookie over Tony Davis. But Tony, with that second consecutive win with the fastest lap, he is eating into the advantage and clawing back that deficit. Tony Davis is somebody who perennially is in for these championships. He's proving once again that Trofeo Pirelli Am is not too big of a step for him. He belongs here, and in fact, he wins when he's here.
Yeah, and what we should remember is the fact that Tony vaulted 2 categories, didn't he? And
yes.
You can see Martin Burrows there taking a towel on to wipe away just a bead or two of perspiration, but well done to Our drivers we can see there in the podium preparation room. Then to the left-hand side is Martin Burrows. The driver looking at the screen right at the back of the picture is Roberto Perena, and then to the right-hand side it is Matthias Kompank. So those drivers in the podium preparation room. Shay and I have a broadcaster's preparation room. It's nothing like as nice as that. Eric Marston leads the Shell Drivers' Championship. He's got 19 points ahead of Chuck Whittle and Robert McWilliams, who both move up a place. Jan Bernier dropping a couple of places in P4. Then it's Cyril Choksi. Then it's John Viscat, Bruce Cleveland, and Lisa Clark. They are the top 8 in the Copa Shell Drivers' Championship. And then running P9, Osvaldo Gallo. Then it's Mitchell Green, then Ray Acosta and Mike Luley, occupying the positions from 9 through 12 in the Copa Shell Drivers' Championship. For Copa Shell AM, it's Roger Monteforte. And then Steve Check moving up a place. Brian Waltersdorf is P3 ahead of Dana Goodwin and Jerry Walters. Jeff Nunberg and Paul Lynn are P6 and P7 in the Drivers' Championship. Roy Carroll is P8. And they're ahead of Darren Bernstein, David Williams, Al Hegyi, Gabe Harib. Then it's Helen Shu, Tal Al-Sher and Neil Langberg, who are P9 through 15 respectively, with Bernard Gomez running P16 in the Shell AM Drivers' Championship at the moment. So some beautiful shots there as we prepare for the podium and the drivers make their way out onto the podium, and there's going to be none more delighted than here taking 2 hometown podiums. Well done to Martin Burrows. He takes the P3 step of the podium. Here comes Roberto Perena then. Congratulated. Great camaraderie between all of our drivers. He goes to step 2 on the podium, but taking his first overall win. And first win in Trofeo Pirelli. Here comes Matthias Perez Kompank to the top step of the podium. Again, afforded congratulations from our drivers, and looks like Marc Genet just poking his head around the corner there. He'll be on trophy presentation duties, and the national anthem will of course play out for our drivers. The full 12-inch mix plays out then, and Matthias Kompank, it's a moment that he'll remember for a very long time, standing atop a Formula One podium as Marc Genet then makes the trophy presentation. First of all, to Martin Burrows. Then Roberto Perena then receives the second place trophy. And on the top step of the podium, well done to Matthias Perez Kompank. Yes. Yes. And of course, Pirelli Trophy to be awarded as well. Double bubble in terms of the trophies. Well done to all of our drivers, not only those that we see on the podium, but of course all the drivers. But of course for those three, very, very special feeling indeed. Who will win the champagne race? Martin Burrows, always. Always, Shay.
Always, always, always. Some things never change in life.
Heavens. Well done to those three then. Great podium celebrations in front of a huge crowd here in Montreal, of course. So next up, we head off to Watkins Glen then in the middle of July. And don't worry, I've got a made note of the ice cream that Shay Adam is going to find for me from Shay and from myself. Thank you so much for watching Ferrari Challenge from Montreal until Watkins Glen. We'll see you there. Bye-bye for now.